my cover fell off, but that's okay. I still like using my pad. I'm using this product here. It's 11 by 14 oil and acrylic paper canvas, right? It's great for all the different designs that we can do. Definitely you can practice on here, put it on a real canvas if you really want to, or you can even frame these guys too. All right, guys, so definitely they're wonderful to play and paint on. And because my cover already fell off, I'm just going to get rid of that. And if you're right-handed, definitely you don't want that seam being on your hand all the time. If you're left-handed, definitely flip it around so then that you're working again away from it. All right, so with this design, definitely I want it to be the landscape style and the illusion of a real good close-up of a Christmas cactus. All right, so the first thing I want to do is start with our background. Right, and what we're going to do is use a little bit of licorice, just a little bit, and then also some burnt umber or real brown, whatever you have, a nice dark brown. And then also some Prussian blue. Okay, so we want to maybe a little bit more Prussian blue. And then definitely some white. Okay, so I'm spreading that out really good so then that way I can get in there and multi-load my sponge. And I'm going to first start off with actually dampening it. Okay, so I want to stick it right into my reservoir, squish out all that water, get it really good and soaked. Okay, and then just enough to blot off, guys. Just, you know, you're drying your hands and taking any little drips off of it. Okay, squish it a little bit. And we want it pretty damp, but we don't want it too wet, right? And then that way we'll get a nice blending happening. We don't need any medium. We've got the moisture already. And it's just a small canvas, so we won't definitely need too much of our medium. Okay, so I'm going to come and multi-load first with some white. So tip right over, and then down the middle. So then that way you got a smaller little space here to blend the whole thing. Right, so I want to get that paint moved over. And I definitely want to have a lot more dark and just a little bit of light. Okay, so blending that in really good. And then we are going to start off with adding some paint over to the side. I'm just starting off over on the side here just to get some of my sponge out on that sharp piece. And just along my line here, just because I have to with this little edge here. Right, it's just holding all the papers. I don't take it all off. I just leave it all in a pad and it holds it straight for you, because if you add too much moisture to these paper pads, definitely they will start to warp on you a little bit. Okay, so definitely working it in along the side first. And then I'm slowly moving down, up and down. And I'm not too worried about the very bottom, guys. I definitely want it to be like a table at the bottom, right? So I'm just concentrating on the very top illusion, up and down streaks, leaving some of them a little darker and lighter. Keep grabbing more paint as you need it, right? Scrubbing it in there, get it in there good, right? All the way across the top. Really quick and easy, kind of dreamy wall in the background. Okay, a little bit, tiny bit lighter on the one side. And then a little bit darker as we move over to this side. Okay. Just keep putting pressure to get some of those streaks in there. And then we're going to come over here and add just the smallest bit, right? And run out of paint. And coming now into adding some of this brown. Okay, so I want to come back over onto this dark side. And just kind of deepen it with a little bit of brown now. All right, so we're going to stop. And, and my luck, mine falls off today. So, plan B might be to tape it down to my table. But I also have another idea here. I'm going to just keep going. Whoop. And try to get this done. Right. Just add a little bit more lighter streaks coming off the top. Okay. So I want to let this dry, and then I can always use some masking tape to hold it back over on me again. Okay, so we're definitely running out of that blue, but we still have little bits of hints in it. Okay, so what I want to do is add a little bit of brown now and a little bit more white. Okay, and then we're going to turn our canvas sideways or up and down. And whatever way is more comfortable for you to be able to get the table straight across. We're going to use about 1/3 of this canvas all the way across. Okay, draw your line towards you is always easier and get a much nicer, straighter line. Okay, I keep adding more brown. Right, until we cover this whole table. Right, so you see all the beautiful soft blues that are coming in through. And when I press down really hard, I'm still getting some of that blue look. Okay, so again, I just wanted to get a little bit more brown, soft blues. Okay, and then as soon as we have that done, now we can pick up the smallest amount of black, come right up across the top, and come right over your line again to add just that little bit more depth into your table. Okay, as easy as that, guys. And then we can definitely add, right, I'm tipping right over, so I'm just using some of my clean white side to streak a little bit more highlight through. Okay. Just fun and easy background. And I've got a little bit of something showing through here. That's okay, because a lot of my design is actually going to be on there. Right, so once we get this nice and dry, then we can put your pattern on. And when you're done with your sponge, you just fold it in half and stick it down the one side of your brush side where you lean your brushes. So you still have some side on this side to clean your brushes, and you also have this area too to clean your brushes as well. Okay, so I love the double-sided water. Okay, so if you want to speed this along, you can definitely take the blow dryer to it. Alright, so I was looking at some different pots, and I got inspired by a big old clay pot and had a big chunky bottom lid there for the water area, and sketched on a quick, easy clay pot for you guys. I gave you a pattern, so definitely just use little bit of transfer paper, and sketch on at least the shape of your flower pot, and then the rest we're gonna do all freehand. Okay, so definitely gonna be trying to make this as fun and easy as possible for you, and definitely hopefully you'll be learning some new tricks along the way as well. All right, so the first thing we're gonna do is add some Pablo into here for our clay pot. We still have a little bit of brown there, which is perfect. And then now we're going to need a little bit of floating medium. And so I'm going to use a big 3/4 flat brush. So basically all you're seeing, you can see in the end result, is the front face of it, right? So as long as it has those lines all in the similar type of shaped line, it'll look like it's all uniform. Okay, so I definitely want to add some shading here. So I'm going to start off with just dampening my brush, even with medium if you want, a little bit, or some water. Okay, and then I'm going to come in and get a nice soft gradient, right? A little bit of dirty white is fine, right? We don't want it to be totally white. We want it to be like a soft tan color. And then we can come over and pick up some little deeper brown. Okay, so we'll start off with the shape of the top of the clay pot. And you can just go back and forth in the middle here to get your shape. Okay, so hopefully getting a little bit of dark brown in there. But if not, that's okay. We can always add a little bit more. Okay, so I'm just concentrating on that top line. Right, go over and pick up a little bit more brown. So you're going to come over to the side and then down. Right, add a little bit more depth. Make sure that's nice and smooth looking. Come over, reload my brush again. Right, just a sloppy kind of gradient there, so it gets some dirty white. And then I'm going to do the reverse. So I'm going to grab my top of the line, come up to the side, and then down. Okay, so that's going to establish the outside wall. Right, add a little bit of medium if you need it. Right, get that in there. Follow that back wall. Get a little bit more burnt umber as needed. Okay, so once we have that, we have to come in. Hopefully you can still see your line a little bit. We're going to come down and around under the rim. Right, come over, grab a little bit of brown, and use that as a liner to get that little more depth in. Right, so you see how I got the Pablo in first, and then I went and picked up a little bit more brown. Okay, so again, doing that same trick, coming down, and then follow this. Right, we want some good coverage in here, but we can always add a little bit more when it dries. Right, get some nice slip in there. Turn your brush around, and now we're going to add some depth at the bottom. So it's like a dirty Pablo, right? Just a soft browny orange. Right, following your pattern. Go off your pattern a little bit. You can always use your fingers, but while it's wet, use another brush, clean brush, and take off what you don't like. Okay. Follow it around. Down the side, and then around the bottom. Right, so hopefully you're getting some coverage here in the middle here. Keep adding some white and some Pablo. A little bit more paint and then dirty that white. Right. Add more white. Dirty it on purpose. We'll grab some brown. Okay. Now we're going to just softly touch in there and then draw a line. Up and around. And this side is going to come up a little bit higher, so it looks like it's behind the pot. And being able to practice your strokes in both directions. Up, right up on that sidewall. Right, and around and down. Keep adding the white and the Pablo. Get that paint slipping for you. A nice line going on. Flip your brush, come around the edge. Now I'm going to come over and side load to pick up some of that brown. Right, so when you go over it the second time, you have the brown on the edge. Should slide for you a lot easier. Add more Pablo. And then that way you got a good base coat started on your pot. So we're going to add to that a little bit more. Right? I'm keeping this a little bit lighter and I'm adding the shading. So I'm just kind of softening that bit of clumpy paint and now I can smooth it. Okay, so I'm going to put that back behind. So you can always add more brown a bit later, but it's really nice to add it now if you can, so you get that combination of a softer look. Okay, and I'm just trying to add a bit more of that Pablo in the middle. And we're going to be having leaves and all kinds of stuff hiding this too, right? So a bit more moisture in your brush as needed. Right? I don't always put it in automatically. I just when I start to feel like I'm not getting a good drag and slip, right, or I'm getting too much of that cross-check look from the canvas coming through, right, slow down, add a little bit more moisture. Right, this is where the floating medium is really nice to help get that slip. Right, to keep turning your brush so you can have a little bit lighter color in the middle. Okay, add some thicker paint in there, wet on wet. Just keep playing with it. It should still give you enough coverage, but definitely a little bit more slip. And once you have it wet, then you can go in and grab more paint. Get better coverage. Anyways, I just wanted to kind of play with you guys here a little bit, just to kind of show you. Alright, and then like I said, we're gonna play and add more. So I want this to be nice and soft. Alright, so you can clean your brush, leave that big guy there to the side for now, and we'll blow dry this quick. And so now we're going to add some sap green. And we didn't do this because you're not going to see it anyways. It's just kind of giving you a guideline of add some depth in there now. And so hopefully we still have a little bit of brown on our plate. If not, just add just a little bit more. And then we're just going to use a 16 or a 12. Right, to flip-flop a little bit of depth. So I'm using green and I'm using some brown. So I'm going to go in here and add with the ground coverage and shading. Right, so just a little bit of green in that brown. Right, using the brown again as your darker color to shade in the front. And start introducing some green tones in the pot. Okay. So now we want to add some shadow. So I'm just coming over, grabbing some of this sap green, right? And then we're going to flip-flop, add some streakiness, right? So our whole design is going to have a wider look than tall. Okay, keep adding a little bit of floating medium in there as we keep flipping around. Right, think of from 9 to 3 o'clock. Right, just start to get some movement and some coverage of full plant. Right, so we're not going too far out yet. We're just staying in the middle here. So that way when we do add some branches out later, right, we're going to add some the illusion of some of these coming right over. Then you'll have a lot more clear space of your wall. Okay, so right in here is where we want it to be a little bit more denser. Right, just kind of getting a feel of a few kind of trailing out. Right, and we can always add more. Right, just a few off to the top part. And then a lot of them are going to come down. Right, so some are behind the back pot. And then we're going to come right into the pot. And you can add a little bit of brown in there too, just at the base. Right, now that we got the main shape done with the green, you're going to come down here in the base of it with your dirty brush, whatever you had. Keep picking up a little bit of brown now to work in the base. Right, a little bit of medium, because we want these to be nice and translucent, guys. Right, just right. And then more off to the side. And these are just your little starters. What's going to get you going and guide you. And you have the ones that are, some are going to come right in front, but we're going to add more of them later. Okay, we're going to start at the back of the plant and start building closer and closer into the front, and then we can still add a little bit more shading with one color and depth, and I still see a little bit of dark back here, so I might want to add a little bit more coverage. Okay, so this is just a base coat of greenery, and then try not to make these too long. Like I said, just stay above the table edge, and then as we're building the back, we're going to start bringing a few more in the front. So far it's staying down for me pretty good, but like I said, it might curl up on you if you take these sheets out to paint. So one thing I want to do is actually add a little bit more tape to hold it down for me so it doesn't slide around. Okay, so I'm just trying to catch the edge. This stuff is super sticky, guys. I really don't want to put it right down on my painting because it'll probably pull up some paint when I'm done. So what I want to do is just make a plan of how long is this, right? And then if you're wearing a sweater or fuzzy pants or anything that has like a bit of a fuzzy, and you know, a knit to it, I always put it down. You can't really see me right now, but I'm putting it down on my pants. Oops, and I ripped it. And it's so sticky. Oh my god, it ripped on my pants. And then I can take some of that stickiness away. Hopefully you can hear me, right? So I'm just putting it on a t-shirt or pants or whatever you think that you can take a little bit of that stickiness off. And then I'm just going to lightly go over my edge here. And then tape this back to my pad. Okay. Grab a little bit of scissors. And cut that excess up. Okay, so now it'll be a little bit more sturdy. Especially when you get down to the last few pages of these, you know, they get a little bit abused as you've been painting, and sometimes you'll lose some of your edge like I did. Okay, so while this is drying, we can definitely play and practice on some paper so you get an idea of what we're trying to create. And definitely I always love to Google and, you know, get some inspiration on colors. And if you really want to do red ones or pink ones, definitely there's so many different colors and combinations of how close you are looking at them too. You can see how they layer together a little bit differently depending on if you're looking at it on a real side view, right? So definitely there's no wrong way of doing these flowers. But what really identifies them, and I was, you know, all these years of Christmas cactus in our brain, I didn't realize that there was the leaves that were slightly different. Now I know this is a little bit blurry for you guys to see, But you can see that the Thanksgiving canvas is very, very picky. The Christmas one is a little less picky, and then the Easter cactus is actually really soft, roundish. And then there's like two petals joining to each other, and they just keep going as long as the branch is, right? And they get a little bit smaller and a little smaller, and then they shoot flowers off the edges of them. All right, so that's what we're trying to create today. And definitely, you don't have to worry about getting them really peaky. It's not like a holly leaf. It's just a little bit softer. And then the flat edge at the top, right? So it's just a little bit different. Okay, so if you want to play on paper a little bit with me, I figured I would definitely give you a little sheet so it'll show you a little bit more of a close-up of it. Right, so they come down to a point, kind of, a little bit wider, and then around the top is a little bit straighter. Okay, so I'm just playing around here. Get a better eraser. Okay, so if you need to kind of draw something out, you know, to practice a few times, and then along the sides it's just very soft little humps. Right, and this is like the true Christmas cactus. Right. And then another one starts right behind it. Right. A little bit bigger. So they are a little bit different, but once you get the brush going for you, that's going to determine the size of them. Right. And then you can use my drawing here, and then it goes into the pot. Right. Drawing you a quick little, right? So we have a few of them coming out, and they come in different directions, right? They're all over the place. And then at the top, again, you'll either have a little smaller version of one, or you'll have, you know, the flowers start to pop out of them. Okay, so definitely it's a little bit rounder, right? Try not to make it too like a triangle. Right, so it's a little bit rounder. That's the only shape we need to kind of sketch out, is that roundness. And then when you're following along with your brush, you can always come out and make these soft little peaks on the edge of them, right? So that's going to be the kind of a little bit of the easier part once you get the shape, the general shape, right? So it's not like a straight. It usually has a little bit of a softness to it. Right, so up a little bit to join into something else, and then back around a little bit higher, right, on the top one. And then there's the vein that comes through. Right. So, like I said, playing around with mine, print this out, put a plastic sheet over it, and these are definitely about the same size as what we're going to be doing on our project today. And then definitely I'm going to show you how to put it on with a little bit more of a chalk to get you guided on the shape, and then that'll help you a lot as well. Okay. So with this leaf here, definitely you can go up to a 16 if you want, or definitely stay with your size 12. Okay, so we're going to add a little bit of citrus to our sap here. Okay. And we definitely want a darker leaf than normal. I'm going to show you somewhere where it's kind of clean. Alright, so we want our gradient to be up there. Okay, so actually I'm going to show you the top part here, and it actually comes up around. You're going to put pressure where you feel like the middle's going to be. So it's just soft, 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 right? Up to the top, and then to a close. Right, so I'm on paper. I'm going to add a little bit of floating medium, more paint. Go over the stroke again. Up. Very soft, not too peaky, guys. And then over to the center. Now, if you're not as wide here, you can definitely use a 16 to make this a little bit easier for you. Right, and then over to the top. Right, definitely this is a little bit different. So I'm going to move my paper so it makes it easier for me. And then to the top. Right, just fill it in. Right, go from the top to the bottom if you want. That's why I always like to go over it, smooth out that inconsistency there, and then we can put in a vein. Alright. So I'll leave that one there for you guys to play with. Right, so as long as it's a little bit round, and then adding your pigs. Right, is there 4? Is there 4? Is there 3? Maybe the bigger leaves will have 4, right? Come up a little bit higher. They are longer and not too wide of a leaf, right? So make them a little bit long. Definitely longer than they are wide. Okay, so I just wanted to play around myself on some paper a little bit, warm myself up here, and then also give you guys a sheet to play on. Okay, so again, there'll be something else here coming up through that stem. Okay, so with the flowers, definitely we're going to play around with a different brush that we don't normally play with. I want to play around with our round brushes. Okay, so make sure that you got a nice one. I got an old one here, and definitely makes a big difference on your chisel of these if you definitely have a nice new brush. Okay, so a lot of these flowers, like I said, there's not even a count on these petals. I really don't know on some of them. But what happens on some at the very, very edge, you might have, you know, one petal coming up almost like your daisies, and then you'll have another one to come around to the side, right? And then just lower will be another flower. So you'll layer another flower over it, and then maybe you'll see a little bit more of a view of this one. Okay, so a lot of them have at least 6 petals, right? But then they have like a layered effect of 2 flowers kind of going in front of each other. Right, so it helps to play around with pencil sometimes a little bit, and then that way it helps to guide you on placement. And how big do you want to make them too? All right, sometimes I get a little carried away and make things a little bit too big. All right, so we're going to play around with some apple red or some engine red. You want to play around with a little bit of magenta. You can definitely play around with different colors. Okay, so I'm trying to find a good spot for my apple red. Okay, cut that down a little bit there. And what I want to do is add just a smidgen amount of water to my white and to my red. And let's turn that around so I can pull off the edge. All right, just dripping a few in there, and I'm gonna pre-moisten a good little puddle here, right across in the line. Okay. Maybe I'll use my old one to stir up the red one. Oops. Okay. You make a little bit at a time as you need them. Okay, so just a little bit more watery version of our paint. Okay. Pull some more to the side. Hopefully you guys have taken my full program on any extra practice that you might need. Right? We played around a little bit with a lot of different brushes for our daisy strokes. Just something fun to do. Okay, so I've got a nice white load of paint here. And then now I'm going to go and dip into the red. Okay, so this is going to be something that you're definitely going to need a rag. Refocus your color. Sometimes your white gets a little bit too dirty, then you're going to have to wash it out and start over. Okay, but we're only adding a few flowers here and there. And again, a lot of the little buds are definitely going to be just little sprigs that you put up at the top, right? So they're definitely going to be just tiny little pressures that you're going to put. Okay, so look how many strokes I did there. Again, we want this to be a little bit more red with a few strokes of white. Okay, I'm gonna grab my rag, wipe off that red, come over and pick up some white, reload my brush, come over and pick up the tip of your round brush with some red. Okay, so the back petals, like you have some a variety for you, right? You can start by putting pressure and then pulling it down to a point towards the stem. Wipe off, reload with white, pick up some red. Again, I'm going to push down slightly and then drag and then put pressure to pull that down towards you. Right? You've got a center point here that your stem is. Right there at the top of this. And again, some of them are bigger, some of them are smaller. You're going to make a variety of them. Right? Then we can always pull in a couple more petals. Right, go ahead and grab some white. And then these ones are going to start over like at 4 o'clock, put pressure, and then guide it into the center. Okay, so make sure you're not picking up too much of the white, guys, that it's taking over when you're putting that much pressure. Right, you definitely want a good red flower. Right, so it's just enough to get the moisture you're using the white for, and then you're picking up some red. Right, do a little ball up there, and then again pulling that into the front, to the center. Okay, so you can leave a couple of those all by themselves, and then there's also definitely the ones that are really in bloom and on top of each other. Like I said, we're going to move this down now, so now we have another little center point here that we're going to guide us. Right, it's a stem off a stem. Pick up some white. Right, so I want this to look a little bit different, and you know, you don't have to cover your nice center here. Definitely start up at 12 o'clock. Come over and do some really curvy, dancey petals. Right, so I'm doing a 12, so definitely this is a good time for you to see how big are they, and do you want to maybe downsize to your 10. Right. A little bit of an S up to your point. Depends if you want to do 6 petals, right? You're going to do your number 6. And I'm feeling like that one is way too white. I'm going to go over it again. Add a little bit more red to my brush and pull through. Okay, so I got a good size there. Now I want to put in some really dainty skinny ones. Right, and then maybe you have to have a little bit more white on these ones that are layering on top. Right, so remember that you do have or darker red, right? You want to have the contrast. Moistening my brush with the white up on my point before I put pressure, and then curl that into the front. Okay, so they're almost like S strokes. Right, you're pulling, putting pressure, sliding along to a point. Okay, got lots of white in my brush, just come over and pick up more red. Right, sideways into a point up. Okay, moistening my brush with white, picking up some red. Pressure right up on your chisel and slide in. So you want a little bit of space there, guys, right? So you can always pounce in a little bit more of a center. Right, we can always add in a little bit more darker color there when it's dry, right? So you're going to put all your flowers in, and then we're going to come back and add our centers. Okay, so we're going to grab our smaller brush. If you want to grab a 3/4 or 16 is a good size if you have it. I know it's not available in the full complete value set, but definitely if you have one, a great size to use. So I want to go over here and side load a little bit of brown, right? Actually just on the corner, and some floating medium. And just come in around all my edges and make sure that I'm happy with that little bit of depth right underneath, around the sides. And we're going to actually go all the way around the bottom side here too. Okay, so a little bit easier with one smaller brush now. Come down your sides and reverse shade on this side as well. Sure that's all good for you. And here at the top here, we don't want this to be too dark. Okay, just around the bottom. It's a big chunky water collector down here. Okay, come up around the side a little bit if you want. And then down. But generally in here, we're going to add a little bit of highlight there. Right, and I want to bring a little bit more of this shading up. Right, and bring a little bit more of this shading to the side. And then now I can start adding just a little bit more Pablo in it. Right, deepen things a little bit. Cover things a little bit more. Make it a little bit richer. Okay, some brown, Pablo. Make sure you're happy. Right, add a little bit of white in the middle. Dirty that white down a little bit. Flip our brush upside down. A little bit of medium as needed. Right, so I know we're darkening things a little bit, but to get that blue and different background colors out, definitely we have to add a little bit more white to get better coverage. And then now we can play around with the tones a little bit more. Right, this is definitely deeper in there. Okay, so I'm gonna add a little bit of white in this now. I'm gonna come around and just highlight just lightly around the top here. A little bit of more Pablo. Oops. So this looks a little bit lighter on the rim. And then slowly into the, pick up some more of that brown, darken the edge. Picking up a little bit of white, just so I can streak it in there in spots in the middle. We do see a little bit of highlight through there, a little bit of dirtiness, a little bit of highlight, and definitely we can go around and add a little bit more shading in there when it dries, if you feel you need it. Okay, and we're definitely going to add a little bit more shading around the outside. Right, so clean that brush off, and we're going to pick up some more brown by itself. Okay, and hopefully you guys have a little bit of that Prussian blue still. I want to make a little bit of a side load too of this. This time adding a little bit more blue into it. Okay, so we're going to make that browny blue a little bit with lots of floating medium. Okay, and now we're going to ground our pot. We want to add a little bit of shading underneath it and a cast of shading around it. So you can come down the side. Yeah, just wet the area with some floating medium first. Very light wash. And now put pressure around your edges to get the color in there. Okay, so I grab around the edge, pull it out. Okay, you definitely want it to look like there's shading in there. but a muddy version of brown and blue. And that'll darken it too, and almost look blackish. Right, but a softer black. Right, get that blue tone around it. And one side is definitely going to be darker than the other, right? Because we've got our shadow and our light source is coming in over on this side of the table. So you can definitely come in and go a little bit darker over on this side. Right. A little darker a little at a time so you don't go too dark. Keep adding medium so they can wash it out over the table. And soften your table out a little bit more. Fix your line here a little bit more. Okay, and then what we're going to do, again, to set our table, before we finish it with all our greenery, I'm just doing like a bit of a wash of Prussian blue on top of that black and fading it out. Add a bit more brown. Definitely intensify what we started with the sponge. Okay, so then I want to wash out that brown tones, and I'm just going to pick up Parisian by itself. If there's a little bit of brown tones, it's okay. So I want to come in and fix my pot outside. I want to add a little bit more shading with the Parisian. Okay, and anything you don't like, we're going to stick a leaf on there. Okay, so try not to get too bulky there. And then we're going to come around the back here and add a little bit more Parisian on the wall part. Right, and I definitely want to float in more of this blue. Right, more shadowy looks. Right, adding some depth into our wall. Adding. This is what makes it really stand out nice and soft, is adding these tones and shades over what you've done already. Right, bring it out a little bit so it's not just a line. Right, again, it's going to be darker on this side. Right, try to follow those little streaks that we gave ourselves to start. Okay, so see how that blue really makes it look dark in there now? Instead of using black, I think you're mixing brown with that little bit of blue. Just to kind of give the pot a little bit different color shading now. Right, see how that just adds that little bit of familiar color of the background. Right, intensify your pot a little bit more. It's supposed to be brown, but it's amazing what that little bit of blue and brown does too. Okay. And trying to just add that little bit of highlight. To make it look round, right? So we definitely want some of that brown brought in a little bit more on the sides. Just lightly put it in there. Okay, so I'm trying to make this one easy, but I definitely have to play. Alright, and bring in the depth a little bit from the bottom. And that's pretty good for that. Okay, we have a tiny little bit of dirty spot here. I'm just trying to clean that up. And like I said, we can always curl a leaf under there. Right. And then now we can just have fun with the strokes. Okay. So definitely there's some of the leaves that are in the background, right? And we're going to be playing around with just sap right now. Okay. And then what we're going to do is start planting some of these background, and you're just going to put little pressures. Right, so some of these are definitely going to be the side view of them. Right. And you're only going to see little bits of it. Oops, I'm picking up a little bit of Pablo. Right. And definitely a lot more floating medium in there. Right. You can layer some of these together. Right. Again, these are just kind of like your shadow ones. Right. So as we're adding some down here, you definitely want to add more and more medium to that. Oops, no white. Picking up white here somewhere on my Pablo. Just this is the illusion of almost like a pressure leaf, right? Background. Right, and then this is kind of like the front of the bouquet. So they're coming up this way, but then they're curling up at you in the center. Okay, so I'm just adding a little bit more green because I accidentally picked up some white. Okay, so again, try not to have too much paint, just a blurred vision. Right, this should be very soft. Lots of medium. Especially in, oh, I keep picking up Pablo. And so sometimes we need some clean floating medium too. There we go. Right, so just little double whammies because you're seeing two leaves, and then maybe you can grab a couple spots of red. Right, there's faint ones with your wash. So that looks like maybe there's some of those further away ones there. Okay, so again, lots of medium. And you got the lots of sap, but lots of medium. With that little bit of brighter red. Side load a little bit brighter red. So you're touching down. Just drag back a bit. And just a very muted version of them back there. Adding some red. Alright, just a little bit of warmth on the tips. Maybe there is some ones deep down in there that you don't see. Okay. I'm just playing, guys. You're probably not even gonna see half of these. Alright, so we're gonna change colors here and go into our green mixture. I would like to flip my plate around so I'm painting in the same direction. And get lots of that green in there. Soften that citrus a bit. Okay, so we've got one, maybe we're gonna come out right over here, right? And maybe we don't see a lot of the whole branch because of everything that's going to be in front of it. Right, so I'm going to put part one away, around. Don't have to press so much. Right, when you're got a bigger brush. And definitely you can still use a 12 to make some smaller ones. So round to the side, up to that strong point, to the side. Up, up, and over to the side. And just use the corner of my brush. And they're not all going to be perfectly straight, guys, right? They're definitely going to be some curves to them, and right, but try not to go too picky. A little bit softer. Okay, so maybe there's another one coming right under this one. Right, we want this one to be a little bit bigger. Set the top, and then come up behind it and add to it. Right, a little bit smaller. And so we're making one to come up the back. A little bit of a stem in there. And then we can put another one, right? I showed you guys can definitely use some chalk, right? As long as this is dry. Put it in how big you want your top. Come around so you have something to follow. Right? Come around, add your peaks. Perfect. Turn this around. Up to the top, and in the middle. Okay, so that gives us a nice one there to add some for the background. Definitely coming out, right? So we want one leaf here and one leaf here on the side. Right, and follow that one maybe a little bit smaller. Oops. Put some dark back in there. Okay, now this one I want to make slightly bigger. Right? So it's going to come around. slightly layer. Right, if you got enough paint, keep going around that whole top. Add some more dark in there. Slide in your vein. Because they definitely start to come down, right? You want these to look like they're coming right over on your edge. Alright, so then we have another one, maybe over a little bit lower here. Alright, so we have a flower going to come out right in front. Another little triangle here. And another little triangle coming a little bit bigger. Coming up, white, 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 up. And then when this is all dry, guys, that chalk will come off very easy. And through. You can always add another version of the small one. Curl that in there. Layering little bits of half of one, right? You just got illusions of some of them. Right, really curly. Right, that's the top. And then we're going to curl some that comes down. So I'm just really trying to concentrate on getting these side ones done. And curling them all right upside down. Turn your canvas if it's easier for you. Right? Definitely always encourage you guys to practice everything all in one direction as much as possible. Okay, so let's put another one here. Right, that's the top. Now I can come in and add some peaks to it. And that's where the stem is going, to focus you right to the top of those points. Okay, make them very subtle. Okay, so then we're going to take some, they're going to come down around the front. Right, so there's my the top. That Cheeto odds, add that dark in there with the corner of your brush if you want. Right. And then I can add another little flower down there. And then, just if you want to make a little bit more sideways winds there, you can always add them in there. I'm not putting a lot of pressure on the bottom one. So they can layer on each other a little bit more. And then I want another one that's going to come almost to the table. A little bit more soft green. And then tight, so not too wide. And actually I want to put a smaller one over here. So your top is going to definitely help set the size. Right? Put that little top, come in lower, and then slowly come into it. You got your pressure point. Watch the back of your brush so that you're trying to come in really close. Right? So you didn't have to fill in so much. Okay. And then we can always go over this one again to layer that one over again. While we're still upside down, we can curl in another one. At the bottom. Not too wide. You guys see my plate there. And I'm going to plant another little tiny one here. Really small pressure, guys. Minimum amount. And another one there. And I'm actually going to add one more big one. Flopping over. You have to put 4 on both sides, especially if you want the illusion of like flip it over more. And then we can always add another little big one one. Come down a little bit lower. Alright, add one more. Long one there. And anywhere you want to do anywhere little shadow ones, little sideways ones, really tiny ones. Right. Make them set back further. Lots of floating medium in these guys though, so you can get lots of slip. Right, so not going to really make sense, some of them maybe. Right, I want that to try to look like it's curling around and coming out. Okay. And it's just sneaking in the illusion of, you know, more that have maybe come through the back. Alright, I think that's good for our leaves for now. And if you want to be able to erase, if you're having any problems with your stroke work on top of this, definitely I recommend that you let this dry. Alright guys, so now that it is all nice and dry, you can definitely get a clean brush and wet it and just erase all of your chalk. Right, and that way you can kind of see where you might want to add more, fix anything. Yeah, but we're definitely going to go on and add our flowers now, and then you can go and touch up anything or add more if you want. Right, I'm seeing a couple areas here that if my flowers don't hide some of my areas, then I definitely want to feel like I want to maybe soften them or add more shadow leaves around it to trail it around. Okay. Okay, so just to make her plan, right, depending on how yours is starting to look, definitely I want to add like maybe 3 bigger flowers here and then some other smaller little buds, right? So this here is definitely going to branch into maybe a bigger one here, right? So I got one here, and then I want to put one that's kind of hiding off of into this direction, maybe a little bit bigger. And then I'm going to use this guy here to make him a little bit bigger. Okay, those be the focal ones there. And then definitely we can play around adding the illusion of more buds, right? And all on these little guys here. right? And then maybe a little half size, a couple, you know, mid-size ones around. Okay, so I decided I'm going to go and downsize to my 8, especially the ones at the background. I want to make them a little bit smaller, and then I want to have some bigger ones that are focused here in the front here as well. Okay, so we can turn this guy into a big one here as well. And yeah, I'm just playing around with this design. I'm inspired by a bunch of different pictures I've been Googling and trying to come up with something original. So you guys definitely see some of my planning in action a little bit more as well. All right, so we're starting off with our reds again. Definitely want to put some water into here. Bring this out a little bit so we have some area to slide it out. Okay, a little bit wide. And then I'm going to rinse my brush really good. Add some more water into my red, especially because it's been sitting here for a little while. Okay, but we don't want too much liquid, guys, just enough to water it down a little bit. Okay. Want some good slip. Clean your brush really good. Right, doesn't matter if there's a little bit of water in there because you've got lots of good thick paint here, and as you need it, you'll be working it, adding a little bit of water if you need it. Right, so hopefully you're making a big enough puddle that you're gonna do for the whole project. Okay, so I've got just a little bit. I was knocking some off, twirling it a little bit on my plate to try to knock some of that off so that I can come in and dip a good amount of red. Okay, so we're going to start off a little bit further away from our flower here, and this is our center point right here. Okay, so I just did a bunch of random lines there, and I'm noticing already maybe my paint is just a little bit too runny. Okay, so add a little bit more of that thicker paint in there. Come in and grab some more red. Right, so you can always test it a little bit. Very light swoop, push, and into the center. Okay, wiping off my brush. Adding another little one to the center. Okay, so I do got quite a bit of paint on my brush, but maybe it's not red enough. Right, just go over it very lightly. Okay, so that one's going to come in that way. Then we might have to go upside down, definitely. Okay, pulling that one in. Okay, we could go in a little bit further to create a double one here. Okay, not all of them do. Depends on how old they are. Okay. Watch your elbow that you're not leaning into your wet one. And then I'm going to wipe off my brush, reload with white. Okay, so I didn't mind if that one was a little bit darker. So now I want to have my center point just above the edge of the leaf. Okay. Pointy. Right. Adding more white. Pick up some red. I'm going to do my 12 o'clock. Still not red enough. It's so nice. Three o'clock. 4:30. Right, so this one's going to flip open and be right on top of the leaf. Right? Maybe a little bit smaller. And we'll pop in another one in there. Some of them are real, lots of petals. Right, so Google, see what your favorite is. Okay, and then we're going to do another one that's coming off of this one here. Right, we'll come down a little bit lower. Oh, I didn't get enough white in my brush first. Wipe it off. I need some more fresh apple red. Okay, this one maybe is just starting to open. So it's good if you got a little bit of a wiggle or shake to you, because then it just makes them a little bit more whimsical. Right? See how my paint does. Apple red sometimes is very watery as it is. So maybe you won't need to water it down so much compared to your white. But like I said, it's not inky, guys. It's just a little bit watery. Okay. Coming down a little bit closer now. Doing my 12 o'clock. 3 o'clock. Still get a pretty big flower with this, the braid. Wipe off. Let's see what this looks like upside down. Right side up. To the center there. Just go over anything you don't like. So now I want to add some buds, right? So we can make some smaller ones. And yeah, I could have made this into a definitely a bigger one, a bigger painting if I wanted to. I think my brush is starting to get too muddy, and I'm getting a lot of pink. It's just coming out. Not too much of a glob. Some really tiny ones. Some of them are just one little bud, two little buds. Not enough white. And you kind of curl them together, right? So they look like they're opening. Wiping off. I know I get all excited and I sometimes add just red. Oops. That lighter tip. Okay. Is it just all about adding little buds? A little layer there. Not pointy enough. There we go. Let it dry, see how you feel, and add more if you feel like you need more. Right. Try to make this a little bit darker. And I feel like I need to add one more in the center here, right? Because maybe this is a different branch. They're so merged into each other as a plantful, right? So, another one there. A little tiny bud there. One over here. Some side views. This one should stand out just a little bit more in the front. Whatever ones are just too washed out, like I said, you just go over it when it dries. Try again. Make sure that, there we go. Now we're getting some nice color coming in. I'm running out of white. paint, so I'm just trying to add a little bit more brighter petals there. To the middle. I suppose especially where you see the whole center here, you're definitely going to have sometimes like a little stamen. So you see how I just went over this again. I'm running out of paint though. It's just not good. So definitely add more paint. Right? Make sure that you've got a good glob so that you're getting that streak. It's not so white anymore, right? My white is gone dirty. And you want to add one more into the center here. Okay, guys. And then dry it a little bit. See how you feel about adding some more of those leaves if you want. I feel maybe in lots of floating medium, right? If you want to add them to the background. And just adding the illusion of a few more. That's the bud coming out of that one. And then if you want to go over any of your leaves again, maybe to intensify some, okay, a little bit lighter. Not too white though, guys, just enough to brighten them up. Not too picky. And you can always add a little bit more to a few, make them a little bit brighter. And go over anything you don't like. And then, oops, I wanted to put some dark in there. Just trying to add a little bit more highlights to some. Maybe we can even add a leaf, right? We don't have to put a flower on every edge. You got a little dirty spot there. And trail a few spots. let's see, a little bit more floating medium. I'm just trying to add the illusion of a few more of these where they're just not making sense. Little tiny, tiny ones. Right. Go over it again to set it in the front. And just the illusion of some side winds. Really far away. This one you can't see because he's behind everything. Okay guys, so that's just how you can sneak some in behind. Right, so maybe some are definitely side ones. A little bit more paint. Straight. Put another one in there. And yeah, that's looking good. Right, add a little bit more highlight to anything that you want it to pop out a little bit closer to you. Right. And then I'm going to go and steal a little bit more red here, I think. With some floating medium. Add a little bit of red. That one up a little bit more. Okay, so now that we're done playing around with some more leaves and adding a little bit, definitely make sure that it's good and dry. I want to come in with a little bit of berry wine. And some floating medium. And we can just add just a little bit more depth, especially in a little bit of a side one. Okay. This one's coming this way, so I want to add the depth on this side. Okay, just adding a little bit more shading. Okay. Anywhere you feel like you need a little bit more depth, you can always sneak some in this way. Right, so this is where the shading's coming from underneath. Right. Anywhere that you need a little bit more help, we'll put a little bit more there, a little bit more in the one in the back, right down at the base. Make sure that everything's really good and dry, guys, when you're doing this. Right, around in a circle. Okay, and then with this berry wine, I'm gonna add just a little bit of white, and then make a little bit of illusion of some stamens. Okay, just a couple that we see. Off to the side, just tap, 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 tap. Okay. And one more here. It's very subtle little stamens that are just off in one spot. Okay. So really the only thing that you have left to do here is grab your liner brush and pick a color and add a little bit of a signature here. Do it maybe in the reds. Right, and add a little bit of water or Alright guys, happy holidays. Thanks so much for coming to create with me. I can't wait to see your versions. I'm definitely going to wait until this is dry and try to erase some of this chalk so that I can give you guys a nice picture. Right. Be very careful until it's dry. Kind of like my version of a Christmas cactus.